Hi, everybody. Welcome to Buddy's Writing Show. My name is Buddy Gott, and tonight I'm very happy to have with me author David H. Fierce. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I've been aware of you online for quite some time because I'm a fan of PI series, murder mystery books, and you've got a series out, the Mike Angel Mysteries. It's
Right.
you're just about to release your ninth book in that series, correct?
Yeah, the ninth one's on pre-order right now for September 1. Dark red.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about Mr. Angel and the
Well,
series?
Mr. Angel kind of got roped into being a private investigator through the death of his father, through the murder of his father, when he was but 30 years old. This was after a stint in Korea, a shorter stint with the NYPD, where he refused to be on the take. His father was a detective, a New York detective, who was, beyond reproach, and retired, got his gold watch, and his aim was to set up a elite agency, uh, sort of like Dashiell Hammett, I guess.
Oh,
And
okay.
he had a partner, Rick Anthony, who was his age and who later retired. But anyway, when Mike's father was murdered, Mike sort of picked up the cross and decided that he would carry out his father's dream. So that got him a lot of conflict about whether or not he liked doing it, wanted to do it, how long he wanted to do it, and was he doing it just for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
Oh, but he's younger than most of you. He's not a crusty old 50-year-old PI. He's a 30-year-old wet behind the ears kid, really.
Hmm.
And if you've ever been 30, I don't know, have you been 30?
I have been 30. I was 30 for a little
Well,
while.
at 30, you make some of your big errors at 30, but a lot of people flush out the mistakes of their 20s when they're about 30,
This
divorce,
is true.
that sort of thing. So Mike is a single guy who has a weakness, a little bit of a weakness for the bottle at first, but also weakness for women, mostly women in trouble, which he
Ah,
relates to his mother probably, who ran off with an insurance salesman, I believe, when he was little. And I think there's a piece missing there in his emotional makeup. But anyway, after you write a series of, I don't know, even 4 or 5 books, you know what the characters are going to say and do in just about every situation.
hmm.
Um, my books, I studied the subgenre, if you call it a subgenre, I do, and joined Private Eye Writers of America. There's a group where some very famous writers were.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that.
I only paid their dues for a year because I didn't see much benefit out of it. But and they didn't sell trench coats at discount or anything like that.
Oh, well, that's a bummer. Yeah, I would have only been in
Yeah.
there a little while too. I mean,
So
you
anyway,
forced me to
Mike,
get a trench
that's
coat.
that's his background, and that's how he got started. His father was murdered on his very first case, or right after solving. He thought he solved his first case. So Mike starts out wanting to solve his father's murder, but gets caught up in a bunch of other cases before he gets there.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Now, you said that he's a Korean War veteran. Now, these books take place in the early 60s. Is that right? They start out in the early
Yeah.
60s?
Each one is in a consecutive year.
Oh, okay.
The one I'm just
Interesting.
working on now takes place in '69. The one that's about to be released takes place in '68. This allows me to go back as a historian and research that period and see what was going on. The locale moves from New York, New Jersey, where I was stationed in the Stone Age, uh, to Chicago for 3 or 4 episodes, and then on to Portland, where from Portland he does Las Vegas and Sacramento and a few other places, but his home base is Portland, which is my hometown. I'm a native.
Oh, okay. That's got to be fun for you as a writer to like, hop around to the various places throughout the books, and especially Vegas, with, how Vegas is. So many great PI stories have taken place in Vegas.
Right. Most of the PI stories are in Los Angeles, But right now I'm reading The Maltese Falcon, which is the first time I've ever read the book.
Oh,
And
how about that?
it takes place in San Francisco, which I thought was great because, you fall in San Francisco, you roll downhill 4 or 5 blocks.
That's true. Now, let me ask you this now. Obviously, you've been a fan of these particular books of that genre for a while. You said that was the first time you'd read the Maltese Falcon. Who were some of your favorite authors that maybe helped you as an inspiration as a writer?
Well, the big ones, but I'd have to put Raymond Chandler at the top. To me, he took the genre and lifted it to a literary level that it
Hmm.
had never been before. I've got some original Black Mask magazines and some of the old magazines, and I read the short stories and stuff in there. And some of the language is quaint and funny, and the plots are always good, and they don't bore you. But Chandler, I just like the way he did things. And of course, his are in first person also. Mine are in first person.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, the Maltese Falcon's in third person, which is unusual because once in a while I hear somebody say, "Oh, all the PI stories are all first person." I get so tired of that, and so I point out that Hammett didn't write always in first person, but you
Right.
can write it in any point of view, really.
Yeah, that's true. And let's face it, the Maltese Falcon, that's arguably like the most popular like private eye story from that time period. And yeah, I love first person. I love writing first person. I love reading first person, especially for the PI stories. They're so much fun, especially like, well, for your example, your guy, Mike Angel, he's got a very cool way that he talks and he shares things. And, the same with the Chandlers, Marlowe, all of that. The dialogue in those, I
So,
love the old style PIs.
so you've read some of the Angel stuff?
Yeah, I have. I've just read a little bit of,
Look
boy,
Inside?
pardon me?
The Look Inside stuff, maybe?
No, not the look
Great.
inside. I actually have a couple of the books, David. I
Oh,
have a
okay,
couple of the books.
great. Okay.
Yeah, but no, I like it. What I like too is you know this. I love the one that I'm actually, and I apologize, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it is one of the ones that takes place in Chicago, and you're very good with like describing that area, that time period, and that's what I really like. Sometimes you find in just various books. And for me, I primarily read mysteries where, something's lacking there. It's either not enough character development or not enough, description of the setting. But, I found from what I've read of yours, so I really enjoy, that you do a good job covering all of it, which is great because you don't always have that.
Readers either love it or hate it. You know how it is. You get one
Yeah.
star, you get 5 stars, and you wonder sometimes at some of the remarks. I just got one the other day. The woman said, "Well, it was okay, but it was outdated." And I thought to myself, "The hell it was! Sure it was. It was in the '60s. Hello."
Yeah, it's like,
Sometimes you
sorry,
appreciate.
sorry he didn't have a cell phone there,
Yeah. I lived through the '60s, and I liked that time. I remember. Well, I grew up in the '50s actually, so uh, I like Ike and all that. But the '60s were really a decade of upheaval, of social unrest, and a lot of things going on there, which a PI thing fits right into that.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do when I hit 1970, if I'm going to keep going or go back and write another one for '60. I don't know, and start
Yeah,
over.
I was actually going to ask you that because that's interesting.
Or maybe I'll just let the series drop at 1969.
Well, that's up to you,
I
man.
don't know what is the right amount of novels for a series. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know. You look at Sue Grafton. I mean, she's gone through the whole alphabet with her series, and you.
Well, I don't like to put other writers down, and I don't make any claims for how good or bad my writing is. But I remember one day I was having my second or third beer, and I read one of her Eight for Assholes or one of those kind of books. And I hurled the thing against the wall literally, which I'd always wanted to do with the book. So I've
So
never,
it was a dream come true then for you. You were
yeah,
able to finally do that.
right.
Well,
I like to hear people all over the country throwing my books against the wall, except that's hard to do with an ebook.
it is. You could really damage your e-reader in the process there, and you don't want to do that. And one thing I was curious about because as I mentioned, I write too, and a lot of the people who watch the show are writers, since it's Buddy's writing show. Your books, with them being the murder mysteries with the PI stories, I was curious. Now, when you start a book, David, do you do much in terms of outlining beforehand? Because I know a lot of writers who do these sorts of books, they really kind of can, dive into it and write themselves into a corner because you really have to plot it out. Hey, what's going on there?
Do zeros. I do zero outlining.
Really? Oh, okay.
I'm
Wow.
what's called I'm what's called a seat of your pantser.
Uh-huh.
I prefer to call it the E.L. Doctorow method because that was his method. He analogized it to writing as far as you can see on that session, like when you're driving across country at night, you steer as far as you can see with your headlights.
Oh, okay. Right.
So, and it kind of works for me. Actually, the first novel was different in a lot of ways, and it's a long story, but I used to have a lot of fear of the novel length because I was a short story writer, written over 100 of them. I studied over 100 of the PI books by all different popular authors to see what each one had done. And, the private eye writer said, oh, make it different, make it weird, make a spaceman come down or whatever. Well, I wanted to stay close to the original, the classic bogey type of tale, because I see bogey all the time in these. I don't know why. I think Mike likes bogey too. In fact, he's reread The Big Sleep probably about 20 times in these novels. But
Well, he chose wisely there. Very, very good book.
the first one was I took 4 or 5 short stories that I'd written about private eyes, and I threaded them together. I had to change all kinds of things. It was a real bitch, and I don't recommend that method to writing a novel. But when I got done, I was 65,000, 70,000 words. And back then, the agents who I even talked to, which I didn't talk to many, wanted about a 60,000 word mystery. That's what they were all looking for. I don't know what they're looking for now, but mine are anywhere from 65 to 82,000 right in there.
Oh, okay. Great.
So after I got the first one out, it's like anything else. Hey, Ma, I can do it, And so then, but I get an idea of one. Sometimes the kernel of an idea will pop up from somewhere, or I'll just try to write an opener sentence that's interesting, and not knowing where else it's going to go. And of course, I know my characters. I know Mike, Molly, and Rick. Those are the 3 repeating characters, and I know their nature. Throughout this, Mike had the subtext of basically fear of commitment, basically. And Molly was his main girl after about the first or second book, but he didn't commit to her. He liked to say that, she'd leave little things over when she stayed over on the weekend, the comb, bra there, or whatever. And so that was their way of slowly making the commitment. Well, it took him several years to, I shouldn't give away any endings, but to make it took him several years. So now I'm in Portland. He's made the commitment. There are some problems, but Molly became a full field agent, and he was able to teach her how to shoot and that sort of thing. But, the problem with women is that Mike loves them all, old, young, new.
that could be a problem. That could be a problem.
They don't all like the way he deals with them or the way he treats them, but I don't think he's ever abused anybody. And in the first one, he slapped a gal, but she was trying to kill him at the time, so I guess that to be excused.
Yeah, I think
I would slap a woman if she was trying to kill me.
I'd slap about anyone who was trying to kill me, and I often have.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be like an equal opportunity slapper there. I think that's allowed.
Right. That's true.
Hey,
so I write by the seat of my pants. It seems to work out. If I get stuck along the way, I just wait a day. I think about it, and I wake up in the morning with an idea to go on, or I turn over and write it down by my bed at night, or I can't sleep. I hate that because then I really can't sleep if I get a whole train. I get an idea sometimes from something that's not even related to mysteries, and so I'll take off with that. But it's the imagination, it's a mixture of experience, imagination. A lot of my sister-in-law's read all of my books, and she says, "Oh, this character's that's her or that's him." And I said, "No, it's not any one person. It's scraps of them and my imagination. I throw it all in a blender and I hit frap, and out comes the novel."
Yeah, and I think you see that a lot with like your friends or family members who they'll be like, "Oh, okay, is that me or is that Fred down the street?" And you can only like use real life people in books so much because more often than not, what comes from your imagination is going to be more interesting than Fred thinks he is.
True.
Yeah.
It's surprised me that an awful lot of the people who liked the books were older women. And I always thought of them as male adventure, male fantasy type books. Sometimes I'll get a woman who makes fun of it as being, male fantasy. One gal headed the review as oh, another male masturbatory, adventure.
Oh,
And I wanted to have her email so bad, because if I would have written to her, I would have said, well, what do you think romance books are if they're not female masturbatory adventures? Because they're both fantasies. They're fantasies of the life a man would like to live or a woman would like to live with respect to the other sex.
right. Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
And so I decided to do some significantly different things. At least I think they're significantly different in my PI tales over, say, Spillane, or a lot of people say it's like Spillane, but I read him and I don't see it. Chandler or Spillane or Hammett. Anyway, some of the more modern ones. See, Lauren Esselman writes a fantastic murder mystery. Anyway, I decided to introduce some element of the paranormal, which is nothing more than Mike hearing his father's voice in his head during times of danger. Now, Mike doesn't know whether he's going bonkers or whether it's a real voice. And if it's a real voice, what the hell to do about it? The voice doesn't often answer him. It comes out of the radio in his dashboard, or it comes out of the heater vent, or wherever he happens to be.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
And so I present those and set them off in italics, a few lines. A novel might only have three or four lines of that in it. But it's always there, and he's always thinking about it. And he also, in his first episode, when he finally got the killers of his dad, he got this long scar down his jaw. And that scar will burn and tickle and itch and different things right before he meets the wrong person or goes into the wrong room.
Okay. Wow. Sort of like Spider-Man's spider sense, kind of.
It's sort of an early warning system for him. And he doesn't know if his dad controls that, or if it's just him, or what. Or if it's his dad's, or his way of hanging on to his memory of his dad because they were close.
Yeah, but, that is unique for the genre. I really like that a lot.
Yeah. The other unique aspect, which the classics generally did, was fade out during the bedroom scene at the beginning of one, or a seduction scene. I try to write those. Not complete with fluids and things, but I try to make I find that a challenge to make them beautiful, and to make, because the acts can be beautiful, and to make them fit the character. And sometimes I might go a little overboard with it. I think in my second novel, I was worried that I'd gone too far with it, but people seem to say, no, that's just about right. I like it. So,
oh, great.
So seduction, in other words. So a more modern approach to seduction, erotica. I used to put erotic in my keywords, but then I learned, erotic's got too many stigma things attached to it, and these aren't. They're essentially mysteries with a love story built in, and a little supernatural. Like these cooking shows. You ever see that one where the guy's sprinkling a little bit of this and a little bit of that?
And right.
Yeah, I look at it.
Yeah, you got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I like that. And you're right. I know it, like in a lot of the old classics, that kind of the stuff you just described was always like, behind closed doors, or would, the chapter would fade out, and you knew what happened. So I think it's neat that you're getting like a Mike Angel who is very much of that time period, but you're seeing really the reality of what happened in those situations, and you get more in touch with him and the other characters.
That's true. He's not the most faithful guy that's ever lived, but he tries. He knows he should be, and he knows she deserves it. And he struggles with that, I think, at times, especially with the clear-eyed, pure, younger ones that, he feels a little protective of, especially if they're in trouble. And then he's in trouble, basically, in another way. But
yeah, well, I like that he struggles with it, because again, like a lot of those PIs from that time period, it was sort of like, okay, this is me, this is how I'm doing it, I do no wrong, and if he's a character that does know that he's got learning and stuff to do, that makes it.
Molly Bennett, his main squeeze, was raised in Chicago. She was a daddy's girl. She was a brown belt when the story started, and she became a black belt.
Oh, cool.
She got what they used to call moxie in a dame,
Right.
Molly's got it in spades, and she was smart enough. People used to say, why is she okay with him fooling around? Well, she wasn't okay with it, but she was wise enough to know that she had to give him a lot of rope because he hadn't made the commitment yet And if she pressured him into either saying I love you or let's get married or whatever, then he would resent it. He'd back away from it. Because like me, if you try to tell me to do something, I want to do the other thing. I mean,
right, exactly.
there's a lot of Mike Angel in me and him, I suppose. But anyway, so she's a bright cookie, real smart. She has an impact on him. Now his style is to rush in bare knuckles, bust down the door, get the bad guys, and he admits to himself that he's turned on by the danger, like he was in Korea.
Right.
But although Korea was sort of a bad scene for him, and he sometimes does a flashback to it. He doesn't really have PTSD, but he has some haunting visions of that time. And his partner, who becomes his partner, wasn't in the first. I think in the second or third one he became his partner, and talked himself into being Mike's partner because he was his father's best friend and partner on the force. And when he retired, he didn't want to go fishing all the time or play golf. He's still active, and he was, I don't know how old he was, 60, I think. So he's more of an analytical type. He'll stand back and analyze the situation, theorize about a murder scene, really good at street smarts, but so the two of them sort of balance each other in their approach. He'll say, wait a minute, Mike, have you thought of this or have you thought of that? And Mike will say, screw you, I can't stand here and think of everything. She's in trouble, I'm gone.
Right.
So I think that's interesting too. And of course, I made Rick Anthony more of a horn dog even than Mike is, and he's always going after some strange woman, usually older women with money.
Ah, okay.
So, or some peccadillo that he finds fascinating. And he's overeducated, so he uses $10 words a lot because on the force, he wasn't, he was single most of that time, divorced most of that time, and he took every course that NYU offered. And so he took courses in, weird African sex, or anything. Literature, you can talk literature. And so he's always using a word, and Molly and Mike make fun of him and run to the dictionary and use that word all day on,
That's a fun character.
Humor in these. I guess that's what I'm trying to point out. I think the characters are funny. I think Mike, and they all say funny things and do funny things while the mystery is going on. Give you one idea of what I don't really have a favorite, but I think the people that I know have favorites. And my sister-in-law's favorite is Dark Idol, which starts with him getting a $10,000 Federal Reserve note in the mail.
Oh, interesting.
In pristine condition, with a note that it's to be payment for trouble that Mike is going to face.
Okay.
And so that's the way the story starts.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
I believe in good openers where you're not opening by describing the weather and all of that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, you want something that's going to grab the reader, like pretty much right from the beginning.
And then not let them. I got a lot of chapters breaks because that's when you got to get up and go to the can or get a sandwich or whatever. But I try to set them to where they're not cliffhangers, but they lead right into the next chapter.
Right. So that person's going to want to turn that page pretty quickly, go on to that next chapter.
I have a theory about imagination. I think it's like a muscle that as children we either use or lose. And I grew up, like I say, in the 50s, so I would listen to the radio, all the old radio shows.
Oh, wow.
The Lone Ranger. As far as mysteries, there was one called I Love a Mystery. You might look it up sometime. And I would listen to that at bedtime and scare the bejesus out of me. But I think it helped me to create imagery in my mind because I actually see a movie of a scene and I play it over and over and over again with different what ifs. And to the point where I can't stand it anymore, I got to go write it. So I write a first draft. I try to get one chapter down, at least 1,000, more like 2,000. Today I wrote 2,300 words.
That's a good day. It's a really good day.
Yeah, that's a pretty good day. And then I print it out, get a hard copy of it, and I won't look at it until tomorrow or the next day. And I'll do a couple chapters ahead, and then I'll go back and do a first edit through that. And get rid of all the little thes and that's and all the words that
Right.
don't need to be there. And then after I'm all done, I let it sit for a couple weeks and go slowly through the whole thing.
Hmm.
Try to put some more smartass in there.
Right. Yeah.
Smartass doesn't come natural exactly. I mean, it doesn't flow, but it's in me. And when I read something over, I'll say, oh, I could have him say this here. So I stick that in. Once in a while, I'll get way out in front and want to change the plot and then have to go back in and stick a few things in there. But that
Right.
doesn't happen very often.
Hmm. Now you mentioned, that there's some smart ass in there. You mentioned the humor in the books. That's one thing that I've always loved in PI books. Are you familiar? Not a lot of people are familiar with this author anymore, but were you familiar with Richard S. Prather at all with his private eye books? He had a character,
Great.
Shell Scott.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved
Blonde
those.
detective. The blonde.
Yes, exactly. His hair was like almost white. It was so
Well,
blonde.
yeah, I don't know if he peroxided it or if it was
Yeah.
just the pictures on the covers look really fake. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually went and collected the entire series. I went to like used bookstore after used bookstore and tried to get those, and well, maybe you're getting something right now. I don't know what's going on there.
was written under a different name. Can you see that?
Oh, how about that? Yeah, that's right. That was I think the one book he wrote under a different name, huh?
He wrote it, Pattern for Murder by David Knight,
How about that?
and as a picture of he's got, it's blonde on top and around his sideburns in the back it's brown. So,
Wow.
but this thing was a collector's item and it's falling apart. This is a list. Oh, geez, I got a list of all the Shell Scott mysteries here. I don't know how many of these I've read. A couple. Oh, the Scrambled Yeggs was the other title for this one.
Right. Oh, that's right. That's right. I think I have the scrambled eggs version of it.
And this was written in '52. So, it's anything written in the '50s is not that much different than Hammett, Spillane, any of those guys wrote. Spillane's stuff changed in the later years, though. I read a couple of his novels that didn't even sound like him. So
Oh, really? Was he getting a little bit more?
I don't know, but I used to see him on TV. At TV, he'd come in with a taller blonde babe and wearing a trench coat and cap. And it was really, I think he actually believed he was the guy.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't know if you know, he actually played Mike Hammer in a movie in the '60s. I forget what the name of it was, but I think it was like a real cheap production. It might have been done overseas, but Mickey Spillane actually played Mike Hammer in one movie. Believe it or not, there wasn't a sequel to that. That was the only time he played him. But yeah, I think he thought he was Mike Hammer.
We're probably boring everybody to death that isn't into private eye novels, but
No. I think they're going to actually rush out and buy your books. They're going to buy the Richard S. Prather books, and they're going to look into Mike Hammer some more.
well, all of my books are now $3.99 except for Dark Blonde, which is like sort of almost perma-free. What I do is I change the perma-frees maybe once a year.
Oh, okay. Great,
So,
great. And all the books do have dark. What was the first book in the series, in case anybody wants to start?
Quarry was the first one, then Dark Lake. Boy, I don't know if I can remember them all. Let me read. That shows you've written too many when you can't remember them. Dark Blonde is probably the most popular one. That's the one that's free now.
Hmm.
Then Dark Poison. Dark Poison, for some reason, gets some returns. I don't get returns on my book, but that one, I think the openers turn some people off, maybe. Dark Idol, which I mentioned. Dark Moon. Now, see, Dark Quarry takes place in New York, New Jersey. Dark Lake, Dark Blonde, Dark Poison, and Dark Idol take place in Chicago. So 4 in Chicago. Then Dark Moon, Dark Fantasy, and Dark Conspiracy take place here in Portland. Or there's a Vegas thing in there, too, and where he has to go to Vegas for some time. And then Dark Red, which also takes place here. Although I think in Dark Red, in Dark Red, he goes to a little town halfway between Reno and Las Vegas called Tonopah.
Tonopah, is that a real town, or did you create that?
It has a lot of history to it.
Really?
Jack Dempsey worked there. Howard Hughes got married there in '57 to Jean Peters. A secret marriage where they used aliases, and in those days they could do that legally. So he goes there to rescue an FBI secretary who went down there on her own dime to check out some cartel folks that used an abandoned airstrip. So, I mean, I don't know. Did you look at the Mike Angel Facebook page? Because I'm real excited about that.
Yeah, I actually wanted to. You want to tell our viewers what that's all about? Because that is pretty neat. I did like that. I followed that on Facebook.
Well, what I did there is I started a Facebook page, not an author Facebook page, but a Facebook page for Mike Angel, Private Investigator. And then what I did was I took each one of his novels, the ones that I'd already written, and I went in to stock photo sites and other sites and found characters that fit my mind's eye of what that character was. Pictures of his car, their cars, weapons, different things that were going on. Like in the Tonopah one, there's this big old huge abandoned hangar that I took a picture of and put that in there where the bad guys were hanging out. Anyway, so I did that for each album, and then with each photograph, I stuck in a quote from my book, an excerpt, you know, either what guy's talking or just something about that picture. And then so I went on and did the next one, and now what I do is when I'm writing a book about halfway through, I make a list, a character list as I go, because I have this problem of naming somebody the wrong name when I'm halfway through. If I try to remember it, I've got a list here in front of me.
Right.
I had one guy named Andy and one guy named Archie, and that was driving me crazy. So too much alike, you know, I had to change.
Right.
So then I go and I find the picture ahead of time, sort of as a writing prompt.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that person looks like, and that's what I've got some historical streets of. The current book I'm writing takes place in the black section of Portland, historically the black section. So I get to interact with some black people. And as a kid, my very first teacher was a kindergarten teacher, was the first black teacher in the Portland public system.
Oh,
I didn't know. I was kindergarten. I was 4. I didn't know black from white from orange. I didn't know. So that's a challenge because I get to do a lot of local research, and that area in town has always been, well, not always, in the very early 1880s and stuff, it was German, but then it became, but after the World War I or II, when Kaiser brought all these trainloads of black people up from the south to work in the shipyards, because they had a huge shipyards going here. My dad worked in it, and basically they lived in this area that was called Vanport, which flooded in '48. I remember the flood vividly.
Oh, wow.
I was only 5, but I remember it. And so then they moved into Northeast Portland, and that's where they've stayed. And it's pretty much a color line, although, I see black people in the western suburbs now and then, and it doesn't bother me. It's just that, I don't know, I don't know. It's just when those lines get drawn, it's really hard to mix them up that much.
Right.
So it's a different sort of book that way, because he gets tangled up with a blonde negress, which is a little unusual, but I guess it's just dye. I don't know. Nowadays it wouldn't be unusual, but back in the 60s it was. So, yeah, I have fun writing these. I don't know if I'm ever going to do anything else. I love the short story form. I think it's more challenging than the novel form in many ways, because you have an economy of words. You've got to tell a whole story, beginning, middle, and end. I used to do some flash stories, which are 500 words or less.
Mm-hmm.
On Filtro, they were 1,000 words or less, but 500 is really where they should be, and that's a real challenge.
It is. I think that's more challenging than a lot of people realize until you actually try to do it, to have a complete story in such a small. Boy,
I started a linked set of flash stories, 500 words or less, and I wanted to write ultimately novel length of 60, 70,000 words with 50 or 60 short stories, or maybe 100, whatever it took. And I got about 20 of them written and just lost interest. And I may go back and do that sometime, but writers always have a folder where they've got all these ideas stuck in.
Yeah, that's true, and it's like you'll be lucky if you can even get to half of them, because the ideas just keep flying at you. I did want to, before we go, mention nonfiction work that you've done. You have quite an impressive thing that you've done with Mr. Mark Twain.
I'm most impressed that Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cornell, University of Pennsylvania, just about every Ivy League school and all the major libraries have bought these volumes for $125 a piece.
Wow. Can we see the size of that first volume again there, David?
Yeah. good weight, see, it's good workout.
Yeah, you could definitely get some exercise there.
Also, a good doorstop.
And you have four of
called
those.
Mark Twain Day by Day.
Wow.
And it's a daily chronology of his life using all available letters, notebooks, diaries, newspaper articles, every primary source I could find, and most of the major secondary sources. I made probably 16 or 18, I lost track, week-long trips down to Berkeley, where the Mark Twain papers are at University of California in Berkeley.
Wow.
And I was probably the only conservative guy on the campus the whole time I was there. But that didn't bother me as much. I would do, like, the last few times I was there, I did 700 incoming letters to Twain a week. And each one was in a different file. Most of them were handwritten.
Wow.
And what I'd have to do is summarize them, excerpt them, or even quote all of them. So, yeah, that was a huge thing. But, I sell them, and the people buy them, mostly, like I say, libraries and in universities, but a lot of scholars, Twain scholars. There's a whole group of those. So they asked me to go back to Quarry Farm in Elmira, where he spent his summers every year. And his wife went to Elmira College back there, and speak at Quarry Farm, which was the farmhouse that's just still there, and I got to stay in the farmhouse where the family stayed and take and give a speech and a talk about when Rudyard Kipling first came up to Elmira to meet Mark Twain. Twain was 54, and I think Kipling was like 27 or in his 20s there somewhere, and it was an interesting meeting, and neither one of them really recorded much about it. But I was able to find letters that Kipling had written and figure out. Nobody knew the date. So that was the kind of detective work I was doing. What date did he meet this guy? And when did he go here? And, and of course, Twain knew everybody in the world and traveled around the world.
Right.
And what started me on it was discovering as a undergraduate that he'd come through Portland on his world trip. And I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen it in the papers. I'd never heard about it. He spoke in Portland, then went up to Tacoma and Vancouver, Victoria, and then took a steamer down to Hawaii. Couldn't get off because they had cholera epidemic. Then he went on down under Australia and went around to India and South Africa and then back up to Britain. And that took a while. It was all to pay off his debts, which it mostly did, but not completely.
Right. Oh, very, very interesting. Now, how long, just from the size of the book, how long did that take you? Like, say, the first edition there. Do you even want to think about that?
All my life. No, I started it in 2006,
and
I worked at it daily like it was a job. Because
sure.
I'm rather retired, although I do write and teach sometimes. And my wife works. She's always marry a younger woman because she can work while you're laying around the house writing. And that's worked out really well for me.
That's great.
Yeah, so I would go to work in the morning just like it was a job and bang at my desk 4 or 5 hours, have lunch, come back, do another hour or two if I could stomach it. And then it just sort of took forever. But if I'd known how long it was going to take when I started, I don't think I would have done it.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a hell of a lot of fun though doing it. And you got to play detective there, on different things, and
in between some of these volumes that I was doing, or along with them, I was writing the Mike Angel stuff, which is kind of a rest for the mind, and it wasn't quite so academic.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to say whom when I wrote; I could say who, that sort of thing. Well, that's what I like about the Mike Angel books. I can be, I don't have to be politically correct. Because
right.
I never was growing up. We said, shit is shit and wherever it lands, and that's the way I admire people like that, and people who don't get offended. That's who I admire.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, yeah, but Mark Twain taught me a lot of things. And his favorite saying, everybody, especially a lot of the stuff that he never said, they quote him. Mm-hmm. But he said, be good and you'll be lonesome. I like that one.
Oh, be good and you'll be lonesome. I like that.
He also be good and you'll be eccentric, and he had a couple of others along that line, but that's one of my favorites. So I got to see the Mark Twain house in Hartford, which is just a palace, and which was built in 1874 at the height of his career. And he wrote most of Huck Finn up at Quarry Farm. He had this octagonal study that they built for him up in the trees, and I got to go up there where it used to be. They'd moved it down to Elmira College, and I got that picture on my I don't know if it's my profile. It's me sitting in front of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. On your Amazon page. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
right.
Oh, fantastic,
So,
fantastic.
so I guess you could call me a Twainiac. That's what a lot of these people call me.
I
So
like that, a Twainiac. Well, that's great. That I think that's just so fascinating. I had read that on your Amazon page, and I'm like, oh, I've got to ask David about that because.
I've actually had three different careers. Um, I had my real estate career because when I got out of college, I couldn't find a teaching job, which is what I studied, do history, social studies for high school. And I did residential real estate for 10 years and got tired of that. And then I got into computers when they were just coming into business. The IBM
Oh,
PC had just come out, and I worked in retail for a year and a half and wholesale for a couple of years, and I started my own company, which I had for 17 years. Made a
wow.
lot of money at that and did well at it and had a lot of fun, but it slowly went downhill with the coming of the internet.
Hmm.
After a small business buys their third set of computers, they don't need a consultant, you know.
Right.
And my customers were all consultants. That's who I sold to. I sold to resellers.
Hmm.
And after that, I got into the writing thing. Actually, when I think in the late 90s, mid 90s, I was doing the AOL thing, you know, where we'd post on these boards and argue with each other. And
Oh, right. Yeah.
I got myself writing every day, and that really kind of got me into writing. And I got into stories and joined a couple of craft groups and critique groups, and got vomited on a few times and learned the craft and bought a bunch of books. That's how I learned things. I'll buy 20 books about it and study them all.
But so that now I find that pretty interesting then. So you really didn't do much in terms of fiction writing, prior to that, huh? It wasn't
I was
something.
in my 50s, early 50s when I started it.
Wow, that's awesome.
My hero, one of my heroes is Elmore Leonard, who wrote up until his death in the 80s. I don't
Yeah.
know, 85, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, he was well into his. Oh, what a great writer.
But his stuff didn't drop off at all.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, I think what he did, what Carl Hyacin is sort of similar does, is they write these cartoonish like characters that are so far out there that you couldn't even believe them, but you're gripped by it. And
Yeah.
I remember one guy had saws embedded in the end of his hands. He didn't have any saws. You know, I'm going, hey, this is stupid, but I like it. You know.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. That's the thing. When you can like lose yourself in a book and just have fun, read it. That's the best thing in the world.
Exactly. I have a Paperwhite Kindle, and I read most of my books on that now. Although I do shop the secondhand stores, and I'll pick up a copy of something like that Prather book.
Yeah, I think that's so neat that you had that there right as I mentioned it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, David, I thank you so much for being on the show. And when I post this video, I'll be putting links on there. I'll put a link to your Facebook page, so that'll be right at the bottom here of the YouTube channel, so people can click and check out Mike Angel's page on Facebook.
You might want to put it on Mike Angel's page too. I don't know how many people go right to that or how many go to me. And
Hmm.
I used to say no to all these friend requests because I had all these strange people. But after a while, I thought, hey, these people are readers. Why not let them in? You know,
Right, right.
they're a little unwashed, but what the hell?
So we're gonna send them to the Facebook and also your Amazon page, and if they want to start out with the Mike Angel series, you say Dark Quarry is the first book,
Right.
correct? And then you've got the new one that's available for a pre-order, right? Or is going to be available soon?
Right. September 1. Right. You can pre-order it now, but it's released on September 1.
Okay, and that's Dark Red.
Yeah, that's Dark Red. Right.
Okay, fantastic. Well, David, thank you so much for being on the show. I had a fantastic time talking with you. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, if you can email me if you ever have any PI questions, and I know you're going to start your own series. I would recommend you get at least 3 books done before you put them up as a series, because if you put one up and say it's a series and you're not right there with the second one, you're going to have people forget you.
Right. Oh, I didn't even
I
think.
was able to put up 3 or 4 of mine in the beginning because I'd written them before the Kindle thing started.
Oh, okay. So you put 3 or 4 up like
3
all
or
at the
4
same
right
time?
away, yeah, at
Oh,
once.
okay.
And then, I think I can write without pushing myself at least 2 a year, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I've written one since summer. Since actually the Mark Twain book got finished in late spring, I've written 1.5. So I think I could do another one. But just 1,500 words a day, you get there, and I don't know
Yeah.
how many that,
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you. I will take that advice, and really had a lot of fun talking with you. And I wish you the best with the series and with anything else you might be working on. I think it'd be fun to see Mike go into the 70s if you go that route later on.
Yeah, he's 38 now, so he's feeling a little old. He can't sprint like he used to, but
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know
you
how
know,
you remember 38, but you start thinking, God, 40, I'm getting old, but you're not, just a kid.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I got socks older than that. I'm not wearing them right now, but
Well, David, you made me laugh a lot. I really had a great time talking with you. Thank you again for being on the show. We had quite a few live viewers who were watching the show, and they enjoyed it. So thank you everyone who tuned in live. For anyone who's going to catch it later,
do you know how
thank
many?
you.
Can you see how many are live on there?
Yeah, actually, we had. I know a few minutes. It ended for me, but I know we had like 28 live viewers. A
Oh,
few
we
minutes
should
ago.
have got India in there. India has a couple million. We could really.
Yeah.
They're all the people you have to talk to when you want support.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're gonna, this is gonna be on YouTube forever. So, the masses will be coming to this video for years to come,
All
David.
right. Well,
So,
thank you, buddy. I appreciate the exposure, as they say.
well, thank you again, and everyone who's tuned in, thank you so much for watching the show. If you're new to the show, please consider subscribing. I do a new episode every week with a different author.
Well, send me on your newsletter, your blog, or whatever the hell it is.
Okay, will do, will do. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
All right.